So applications started for this class in August of 2020. Well, we were supposed to start in September of 2020, and we postponed, and we postponed. And then we decided to get creative. What could we do? So like many other people, we lived in a virtual world. So this class met for 4 months virtually. They only got to know each other Brady Bunch style boxes with names. So I guess that was probably a great way to get to know everybody's names. And they were troopers through it all. Finally, in May, we were able to get together for the first time on the ropes course, and after being screen to screen for months, for weeks, they were holding hands and helping each other cross logs. I don't know if anybody saw any of the pictures ahead of time. There's been some very interesting classes. We've done everything from the shooting simulator for local government. We spent a very, very, very warm day on the Riverwalk talking about art. Well, nobody will forget anytime soon. We've enjoyed Nonprofit Day. We just had our state government day yesterday that we had to kind of change around. Normally this is something we do in Des Moines, and we were able to do part of it virtually and then have this wrap up. But I think one of the overall themes of this class has been the fact that they've really bonded together. They've embraced the chaos, and they've really gotten to know each other in a way that is just absolutely unique to any other class. And that's the beautiful thing about Leadership Dubuque. Every class has the same theme days, but no class is the same. Everybody has a different experience, and it's because of these individuals that make it so remarkable. So I want to say thank you, how proud I am of all of you. This has been wonderful. You guys have been amazing, and I'm so blessed to have been here for all of this. And without further ado, I'm going to have our first class representative come speak, Mr. Jack Mesher with Hills and Dales.
Could you adjust that teleprompter? The teleprompter.
Yes, Mr. President.
Yes, yeah. I have my remarks. So, thank you, Justine, and thanks to you all for attending and taking time out of your evenings to join us for this commemorative event. My name is Jack Mesher. I work at Hills and Dales as the CEO. I joined Leadership Dubuque, and like 4 weeks later, I was CEO. It was really, if you want a pathway, Leadership Dubuque, clear pathway to success, as they say. So it was either that or it was a workforce issue, and they're really scraping the bottom of the barrel. So I can't speak to that, but correlation doesn't equal causation. But at Hills and Dales, of course, our mission is to build meaningful lives for persons with intellectual disabilities, and we are shamelessly hiring. So do please feel free to refer any interested persons our way. Just a little plug. But I have to apologize. I won't be able to stay for the duration of the program. I failed. I scheduled our company Christmas dinner below at Caroline's, same exact time. So I just wanted to thank the class for putting up with all of my antics in the interim, and certainly the shenanigans throughout the long year. I want to begin with strong gratitude to the sponsoring companies present, the Chamber of Commerce, Justine, Michael, and the many, many partners who volunteered their time and resources throughout the year to showcase the best of our community. Certainly, we spent this last year not only reflecting on the principles of leadership, but also getting a glimpse of the many unique businesses, resources, and opportunities available in Dubuque, ranging from Jean Tully's exhortation on art at 95 degrees in the afternoon. God love Jean Tully. It's just 95 degrees. To manufacturing and a variety of charitable initiatives that I think we're all proud of as a community. I know that it certainly took time and resources to accommodate the tours we asked of businesses, visits and presentations, and in aggregate, it's probably a couple thousand, tens of thousands of dollars in time that was spent accommodating this class just in company accommodations. So I cannot thank the community enough then for your hospitality and how willing you were to take the time to share your time with us all. Across the many stops we had during the year, I noticed there were some pervading themes, which I think were common to the success we observed throughout all the industries and sectors we were able to learn about. Some of these themes include passion, boldness, humility, and each having a mission connected to the common good. The business owners and community leaders we heard this year readily shared a passion for their work and demonstrated boldness by the risks that they've taken without knowing necessarily where all the pieces may land. Certainly, we observed that for the leaders who actually move the ball in our community, there's little room for self-admiration, pride, or arrogance, but rather a strong sense of humility that invites partnership, newcomers, creative ideas, critique, and the wisdom that failure or being wrong is okay. Finally, it was evident among the leaders we met that each had a mission rooted in something beyond mere self-interest. Certainly, while maybe pursuing profit or something to benefit oneself, there was something bigger that we've all entered into as a community. The business leaders and organizations we toured and heard from, each in their own way, are living out a mission which contributes something to the community, to others, to the fabric of Dubuque, which makes this place very attractive to live. And myself, while having lived in Dubuque County for the bulk of my life, I certainly entertained moving away in pursuit of other opportunities, as they may have arisen. A big part of my choice to stay and grow a family in this area is what I observe to be the ability to make an impact. The community itself is small enough to gain access to decision makers and even become a decision maker, but it's also large enough to accommodate bold vision and capable of dramatic impact. So I've had, in my time here, I've had the great privilege of working for John and Mary Gronin, who we were able to tour some of their impactful projects. Prior to being at Hills and Dales, I worked there. And so I, like many in town, really admire their principles and character as leaders, as contributors, and certainly we can see their success borne out through the many projects around town. John shared with me on one occasion kind of his outlook, I suppose. I don't know if it's his theme. John's got a lot of ideas, but I really think it speaks to what we've seen from so many this year. He said, really, Jack, you have this much time in life, and bold people spend their time filling it with as much impact as possible. And I think we've seen business after business and organization after organization filling their lives with bold impact. And it's been just a great reassurance, I think, as a citizen, as someone involved in an organization, to know that there's companions in this effort to do something bigger. So on behalf of our class, please know to the community of our gratitude for the belief and investment in our own development as leaders and contributors to the community. I know we're all eager to partner, collaborate, and grow with you all to bring our community to the next level. So thank you all.
As mentioned, I'm Brad Powers with Tyson Supply Company. I know for the group here this evening, there was some tension about who would be speaking. Justine originally said it would be the valedictorian. Clearly, if Jack and I are speaking, that's not what it is. So there's nothing to do with that this evening. There's just kind of a basic backstory about how the speakers were chosen. First, Justine asked the best cook of the Leadership Dubuque group if they would be willing to speak, and they said they were busy. They were not able to attend. From there, she asked the smartest individual if they would be willing to speak out of the group. They were also not able to. Lastly, best looking. So after telling Justine no 4 times, I said, fine, I'll speak. I'll speak at your event. So that's why I'm here tonight. So ultimately, she said, let's just keep it short, nothing fancy. So I just have a few things. And I want to turn off the cameras too. No more filming, Jimmy. A few items I did want to cover tonight. I had a few things. All right, number 1. 6 ways to get Jack Mesher to shut up. That's the wrong deck. That's the wrong one. Okay. Note to self, plan on Justine rearranging your entire leadership day at the last minute. That's also the wrong. Okay. In any event, leaders always come prepared. I have one other little thing here. This is, once again, keeping expectations low. So I thought in the holiday spirit I would share a little family heirloom here. So 'Twas the night before Leadership Dubuque, when all through the chamber not a creature was stirring, not even Justine Paradiso. The presenters' gift bags were hung by the Q casino bus with care, and hopes that St. Rob soon would be there. The students were all nestled in the hotel, while visions of undercooked chicken danced in their heads. This is an abridged version, not everything rhymes. Have to deal with it. And Brian Nugent in his feminine water shoes. And Andrew Fauble in his water ski. They had just settled their brains after a long Adams dance class. When out at Derby Grange, there arose such a clatter, I sprang from my Zoom meeting to see what was the matter. Away to the barn I flew like a flash, tore open the coolers, and threw down a bush. The sun on the breast of the new fallen golf course gave the luster of a late day happy hour, after 5 p.m., of course. When what to my wondering eyes should appear but a miniature Leo Gedkin and 8,000 smoked barbecue wings. As quick and lively as listening to a Dubuque historian, I knew in a moment it must be a Leadership Dubuque day. More rapid than Jack Mesher's mind races, he whistled and shouted and called them by name. Now Robin, now Garrett, Annette and Krista, on Leah and Jackie, Rena and Nicole, to the top of the courthouse, to the Falcon's Nest. Now lead, lead, and lead away. As dry as the coffee grounds before a Verena Street tour, when we met at the airport for Economic Development Day, the undisputed best day. So down to the food pantry, the leaders they flew, with a bus full of food and St. Rob too. And then in a twinkling I heard from NICC, the racking and shooting of semi-automatic 9mm guns. As I drew my pistol, turning around, down to the Vitra 300, Sergeant Dave Boardman came abound. He was dressed in uniform from head to foot. He asked me to hang a little black box on the back of my pocket. And he acted nothing like Santa as he proceeded to taser me. And so he gave the leaders a whistle, and away they all flew, like Aaron Howell on the 4-mound swing. But at long last I heard Justine exclaim, as she drove off out of sight, "Happy Leadership Dubuque graduation to all, and to all a good night."
I need my cards.
All right, I'm done. Everybody go home. I can't. That was fantastic. Oh, thank you to both of you. I have no words, but wonderful, wonderful. As I mentioned, we started this class in a virtual world. We got creative. We did icebreakers where some people were in the hospital where their newborn had just had appeared. We had some people on vacation out of the country. We had to get a little bit creative. And so I was very pleased to have met virtually Michael with Catching Leadership for Young Professionals. And this idea got thrown around of a virtual workshop, which actually came to fruition and was wonderful. And everyone had an amazing time, and if you didn't, just nod. But the beautiful thing is Michael and his wife are from this area, and at the end of leadership, had decided to relocate from California back here. So I am very pleased to have as our keynote tonight, Michael with Catching Leadership, a new back to the Midwest resident. So Michael, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Justine. Let's see, here we go. So it's so lovely to see all your faces here tonight. As Justine mentioned, it was all virtual, and it was, 6 or 7 months ago, but it feels like a long time ago. A lot has happened in Alicia and my life with the move across the country. Our daughter just turned 1 yesterday, and there was a really cool announcement. I don't know if you saw it online or not, but my wife Alicia is launching a book that comes out in this spring. So I want to give her a round of applause because being a mother and writing a book is a big deal. So without further ado, for those of you who don't know me, I wrote the book Catching Leadership, and it is what my business model is based on. And if you see this guy with long hair looking like he's living his best life right now, it's because he is. This is at a fly fishing leadership retreat in Southern California this October. And if you remember in that class, I said my dream big, do it now goal was to host these leadership retreats. And I was able to follow through on that commitment this year. And it's just the start. But while I was out there, it was remarkable to work with these leaders in this setting. Fly fishing is actually something that's new to me. I've fished my entire life growing up. It was mostly bass fishing. I fished with my grandpa. You think about fishing with a bobber, but fly fishing is like a whole new world. It makes you think about a lot of different things, and it has naturally made me think about a lot of different leadership principles as well. So we're going to talk about knots tonight. This is probably not what you were expecting in this keynote, and knots are just very, very important to fishing for obvious reasons. I want to ask and see, does anyone know what knot this is? A tight one. Okay, this is a nail knot, and I would not have known what knot it was a year ago, but this is used specifically within fly fishing. That's the fly line, and then it attaches to a leader. And in fly fishing, the name of the game is things need to be really small. The fly is really, really small. So you start with a thicker section, and you tie other pieces along the way down from 10 pound to 8 pound to 6 to 2 pound test. And as you go, you have to ensure that each knot is tied securely. Because if you hook into a fish and your middle knot is not tied securely, you're going to lose that fish. So you're only as strong as your weakest knot in your leader, right? So I started thinking a little bit more about knots in the lens of leadership. What is a knot when it comes to leadership? You think about it in terms of relationships, the relationships that you build. So the first step in tying a knot is you need 2 pieces of string. Think of that as the character that 2 individuals have, the integrity that they come into the meeting with. That's going to depend how strong this knot is going to be right from the bat, because if some person doesn't have integrity, it's going to fall apart before it even starts. The second piece of tying a knot is you need to have some kind of twist or some kind of loop. There needs to be some kind of mechanism to weave these pieces of string together. Think of that as your initial bond or the communication that you have with an individual. You're either hitting it off with someone or you're not. There's a level of intimacy there. You're like, I kind of get that individual. We're clicking here. The next step, once you have the twist and the loops, is you got to pull a little bit of tension out. You got to start to form that knot. So that's making a commitment, a promise to this individual, whatever that is. Yes, I'll show up at that next meeting. Yes, I'll do that thing for you. But before you're completing the knot tying process, you have to wet the line and you have to cinch it down. And the cinching it down is your follow through. And that's how you build trust with individuals, is following through. Now you've created a strong knot, hopefully one that can stand the test of time. And when the opportunity comes, a big fish, a big opportunity, you can trust that individual and the like. So at this point in the talk, you're probably thinking like, how did this guy get up here? He's talking about fishing knots. Like, come on, man, let's get on with it. Well, that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to tell you about how I got up here and how this whole journey started for me through a story that happened early on in my career. And it started while I was still in graduate school. As part of grad school, I had to fulfill an internship. And I still remember the day I applied to this internship, and I remember I heard back from it. It was in Canton, Ohio, and I told my wife, Alicia, I said, hey, I got this internship. It's in Canton, Ohio. Before she said congratulations or anything like that, she goes, we are not moving to Ohio. Well, we did. We moved to Ohio that next year after we got married. And this was the perfect pond for me to practice my leadership skills in. It was a perfect pond for me to start forming some knots early on in my career. This company that I worked for was truly outside of the box. They allowed you to decorate your own house. And of course, mine was a fishing cabin. You can see in the top right there. We had a bistro, this picture right here, and there was a PlayStation that was set up in there. We would play concerts. We'd play video games during our lunch break. our leader, his name was Chris, and he really wanted us to break the mold of everything that was wrong with corporate America, that cubicle death or prison that none of us want to go to each and every day. So we had to embody that. And I'm thinking to myself, like, I scored big here. Because not only was I getting leadership experience and coaching other people, I was starting to be groomed to take over that company. Which to me was like, wow, am I actually ready to do this? Is it something I want to do? And very soon thereafter, I realized it was something I wanted. I could see the vision that this leader had put out for me. And by the way, we played in a band together outside of work too. So like totally this dynamic of this leader being invested in my time and mine and his, and just forming this strong knot. All the pieces were in place for this beautiful relationship. But eventually, in any company, the rubber needs to meet the road at some point. And so you can have the best culture, you can have the coolest office. At some point, you need to grow. You need to bring in revenue. And if I'm going to be taking over the company, I need to learn how to do this on my own, right? So I need to bring in my own sales and not just rely on Chris to always be at every meeting or giving every speech. So the year's 2015 now. I've been in my role for a few years, and this perfect opportunity comes up. It's an RFP, which if you've ever completed an RFP, you know how much of a pain they can be. It was about 40 pages long, and it was everything from company history to your turnover to everything, your approach. But it was an RFP for leadership services with a client up the road, up in Cleveland, Ohio. Still part of the Rust Belt, and they actually distributed tires. They were a tire distribution company. And I started building this relationship with Karen. Her real name was Karen. I'm not calling her a Karen. She really was Karen. And she said, you know, Michael, we found you online. We want to buy locally, but, you know, you have to go through this process, and there's some stiff competition here. I just want to tell you, there's some other big firms who are trying to win this work too. But over time, I started building this relationship with Karen, and we submitted the RFP, and we got accepted to come up and deliver a pitch. This was my big opportunity. This was my chance to show everyone in the company that I could win work without Chris, and that we could take this company from a couple $1 million a year to maybe $10 million a year. So I set the table. I did absolutely everything I could to set us up for success. We ran a dry run. I tried to make like the best slides that I possibly could. I'm like, we have to win this thing. So it comes to the day of the pitch. There was this little tradition, I didn't like it very much. There was this tradition that we did where I would drive my boss Chris's car, and he would sit in shotgun, and he would type in his laptop, take phone calls. We also had a chief scientist with us, Carl, who was in the back too. He was the guy who was gonna answer any questions related to the methodology and is it scientifically sound the way that you're measuring leadership in your company. So it's the day of the pitch, it's April. It's cold. It's like one of those days you can't quite shake winter. There's still like that ice and like grimy stuff on the road. I remember driving up there, trying like white knuckling and like, oh, I don't want to wreck my boss's car, but also thinking like, have I done absolutely everything there is to do to win this deal? So we arrive, we're on time. Karen greets us at the door. There's a bunch of art on the wall. They were next to the Cleveland Museum of Art, so they really embodied that in their office. Each team had 30 minutes to pitch. And so we get in there, there's a board of directors in the back, the decision makers, and there's Karen off into the corner. And she said, okay, the floor is yours. So I take off and I kick things off and I say, we're so happy to be here. You know, this is the start of a great relationship. Here's the agenda that we have outlined today. Here's the team that we've brought. I'm setting the table, high energy, doing all the things you're supposed to do at the beginning of a pitch. And I hand the baton over to Chris. And Chris does something unexpected. He goes off script completely from the dry run. He starts dropping all of these automotive trends from the Great Recession, and I'm looking over, I'm like, what's going on here? And all of a sudden he gets nervous. He starts stammering. He's the owner of the company, and he's completely blowing it. I look over at Karen, I look at the board of directors, and they're just kind of like stone-faced, like, oh my gosh. Well, eventually he gets done with his part, and then the baton gets passed on to Carl. And Carl does a pretty good job. He's pretty succinct. He talks about it, gives us the credibility that we need. Comes back to me, I go over the timeline, the pricing, and we open up Q&A. We get through the Q&A process, and we rebounded okay. So Karen walks us out the door, we go back into the car, and I remember not feeling great. Actually, I remember the pit in my stomach. It was the moment that I realized that the company was only going to go as far as Chris would take us. And my own development would only go so far too. And I realized during that pitch that I could no longer work for that company anymore. So we're driving home, we have to pull over to get gas. Carl and Chris, they're talking, how did it go? I think we did okay. You know, you want to feel good, you want to give high fives after a pitch, and I was not. I was pretty cold, honestly. Passive aggressive, that Midwest passive aggressive thing, I was definitely playing that card quite a bit. We end up getting home. I remember telling Alicia that night, I said, I think he blew it. I don't think we're going to win it. So we wait. 2 weeks. Karen's getting back to me, email. Hey, do you have any feedback for it? Yes, we're still talking. We're in the decision-making process. Okay. All of a sudden, it's a Friday afternoon. The call comes. My heart sinks. Hey, we either won this or we didn't. Karen gets on the phone and says, hey, Michael, I got some great news. You won. We want to move forward with you all. Congratulations. I said, that's awesome. Fantastic. When can we get started? You know, what are the next steps? She goes, well, there's just this one other thing. I said, okay, what is it? She goes, that Chris guy that you brought. I said, yeah. I don't know how to say this, but the board of directors, they said they don't want him to deliver the services. Really? What, anything specifically? They think he lacked executive presence. So I'm thinking to myself, the executive of my company, my leader, lacks executive presence. I need to go tell him that we won this work, but that he can't go deliver it. Okay, Karen, thank you. Appreciate it. We'll be in touch. That's on a Friday afternoon. I let Chris know that we won the deal, but I wasn't going to have that talk with him yet. All weekend goes by, and I'm agonizing over having to tell Chris this piece of feedback. And poor Alicia probably had to hear me talk about it at the dinner table over and over again. She probably coached me through it in a good way. So Monday morning comes, and I get into the office. I knock on Chris's door. Hey, Chris, what's going on? Hey, man, how are you doing? Oh, I'm good. Yeah, I'm so awesome. We won. You know, you did such a great job, Michael. And I'm just excited now the team, we got, this win. We can build on this momentum. Visionary leader type, right? Trying to build on that energy. And I said, Chris, there's just this one thing. Karen told me that they don't want you to deliver the services, that you were nervous, you were stammering, and you didn't have the executive presence that was required. And Chris got defensive. It was a humanly thing to do. I probably would have got defensive if I was in his shoes too. And he said, well, what do you mean? And I could tell you were being, kind of cold with me on the way home. And don't you know that I know I didn't do well? I said, actually, no, I didn't, because you were high-fiving and kind of playing it off afterwards. And that actually made me even more frustrated. So I delivered the message I needed to. That meeting concluded. We moved forward with the contract. But that strong knot that I started, the strong knot that I started to form with this leader, with Chris, it started to unravel a little bit. You know what it's like when you really believe in someone, you trust someone, and then all of a sudden you see the writing on the wall, you see the plateau, and you're just like, you don't have it. You can't take me where I need to go as a leader. So that knot was tested, but it was not broken. I meet with you, I have an important talk. He said, okay. So he meets us there, and again, prior to this meeting, poor Alicia had to listen to me agonize about this one too, because how do I say this? We're gonna leave. And I said, Chris, you can't possibly think that we were gonna stay in Ohio forever, did you? He's like, well, I guess I didn't know. I said, we have no family here. We're 10 hours away, and ultimately, I wanna do what you do. I want to start my own firm. And I admire the opportunities that you've given me, but I'm going to start looking, and I just wanted to give you a heads up. And I know that this is a risk in doing it because you might say, well, just leave right now, but I want to at least give you a heads up because in a small company, when you lose key people, it's really hard to replace them. So he said, here's what I suggest to you, Michael. Put together a proposal. You want to live in San Diego? Where are the clients you're going to go after? What's your commission structure going to be like? How are you going to make this work for you and Alicia financially, but how are we going to make it work for the business too? Present that back to me and let's see if we can make it work. So I did. And I put my heart and soul into it. And I looked at all the different salaries and it was like, oh, I'm going to need quite a bit more money out there. But I need to make this work for Chris and the rest of the team. I delivered that proposal and ultimately he didn't bite on it. He said, I just don't see the growth in the LA San Diego market and I'm going to have to decline. I said, okay. But then something unprecedented happened. And I use this quote from Willy Wonka, so shines a good deed in a weary world. He came back and he said, Michael, I care about you and your well-being, and I want to at least offer you 3 months that you can work remote for me. I know you're going to be interviewing elsewhere. I know you're going to have a foot outside of my company as you're trying to get into another one, but I care what's best for you, what's best for Alicia, and I'm willing to do that for you. I thought to myself, wow, it would have been a lot easier for him to just say, good luck. Well, the next day, I hear from KPMG that they want to extend an offer to me as a management consultant in San Diego. So now I got to go back and tell Chris, thanks, but no thanks. I made it to the big leagues. See you later. And in that moment, I thought to myself, I may never talk to this guy ever again. I mean, you never know, life is short. So some time goes by, a year or so, and we really didn't talk. It was like a breakup. We needed our space. Then the next year, a conference came up. It was a psychology conference that both of us were going to be attending. And I said, let's meet up. So we met up for some drinks. And I was so nervous. I thought, this is going to be awkward. I should just bail on him. Like, I don't want to do this. But we did it. We both showed up for each other. We had a freaking blast. We reminisced about the band. We talked about the good times. And he told me, Michael, I'm proud of you and your successes. I said, Chris, you know what? You gave me opportunities early in my career that I never would have had. You know, let's bury the hatchet. I wish you well. You wish me well. So that's what happened for that next year. Then I started working on the book, Catching Leadership, and I was traveling with KPMG as a management consultant to Seattle. And I started thinking about this chapter 3, Tie Their Knot. And I saw this picture of this giant cargo net in the Seattle lobby of a Marriott. I said, that's it. That's it. Leadership, your legacy is like a net. There's going to be different knots within it. How broad, how strong is your net as a leader? So I got my pen and my paper out. I started writing the intro to that chapter. And it just kept flowing to me that these analogies with fishing and thinking about my own life as a leader, where do I need to keep strengthening my own knots? And I think another way to think about this, because it is the holiday season as we see the tree over here, I don't know how many times you've seen the movie It's a Wonderful Life. If it's been a while, you know, it'd be a good idea to maybe watch it again. But in that movie, this exact analogy comes out with George Bailey. Because George Bailey's down on his luck. He wants to end his life. And his guardian angel, Clarence, comes by and says, wait a second, let me show you a few things. So he takes him throughout the course of his life, and he shows him all the knots that he'd tied, the people, the impact that he had had. And who's there for him at the end of that movie to catch him when he's down? It's all of those people. In 2019, I took the ultimate plunge. I started my own company. I formed an LLC. And I remember prior to doing so thinking to myself, how the heck do I make this transition? How am I going to make money? How am I going to get myself out there, be on solid ground? I said, there's one person I need to call up. That's Chris. He's done it. He's built a company. He knows me. He knows my skill sets. He knows my blind spots. I need to call him up. So I did. I called him up. He said, Michael, I'm so proud of you. I'm happy that you're doing this. He goes, when it comes to relationship building, you're the best in the business. I mean, that affirmation, that confidence that I needed, he instilled that in me. And I remember saying, well, I have some money saved up, but do you have, any work or any ideas of how I should go about winning my first few contracts? He said, let me talk to some of the leaders here and see what we can do. We've never had a person leave the company and come back and work as a subcontractor. So he goes and he talks to those individuals, and I had to have a separate call with one of the other leaders who I didn't know very well. They just wanted to make sure nothing fishy was going on here with are you going to steal our IP? Are you going to steal our clients? I said, no. Nothing like that. I know your methodology. I know your process. I know how to coach your way. They said, okay, let's do it. So I had 6 engagements lined up within that first 6 months of starting out on my own. And without that revenue and without the support of Chris, I don't know if I'd be here right now on my own. I don't know if I would have finished catching leadership, especially with the pandemic and everything that happened. So in so many ways, retying that knot and strengthening it afterwards was paramount to my success. And the funny thing about it is, my relationship with Chris today is stronger than it would have had been if we didn't go through what we did. So what I want you all to do right now is I want you to close your eyes. I want you to take a few deep breaths. Close your eyes, clear your mind, and breathe. I want you to think about your own net as a leader. In your career, who are the relationships that you've come across that have meant something to you? Now, in your life, even more broadly, who are the people who've impacted you that are part of your net that would be there for you in your own movie of It's a Wonderful Life at the end? Who are those people? Now I want to ask you, in your net, where does it need to be mended? Be honest with yourself. Who's the coworker? Who's the family member? Who is it that you need to retie that knot with? Okay, you can open your eyes. I want to leave you with this tonight. My ask of you as leaders is to remember you're only as strong as the knots that you tie. Thank you, everyone, and tight lines.